This is episode 219 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Welcome back to the show. Today I have Mohit Kanyan on the show. And Mohit was a guy that I was not familiar with. He messaged me on Instagram and wow, is he ever interesting. Just such a nice guy, so accomplished as an entrepreneur. He came over to Canada from India in 2016, finished a master's, had already developed his own painting business up to $250,000 in sales at that point. Then he moved to Kitchener, took on a job at Amazon while he built out his real estate portfolio. He had some good timing in the market, sold at the right time with a bunch of the stuff that he had bought in Windsor, Ontario. And then he bought a gas station. And man, was it ever cool to go through the numbers on this gas station. We're talking 35% plus return on investment annually are the numbers we came up with on this show, going through what he's collecting, $30,000 a month in cash flow. Just absolutely wild, and cap rate of over 15%. Now, there's a lot to know when you're going to invest in a gas station. There's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of regulation, environmental concerns, but I consider that hazard pay. If you're into that type of an industry, you get compensated for being in that industry. I always suspected that gas stations made a lot of money, and this episode sort of confirmed that. So it was really cool talking and digging deep on how Mohit keeps this business profitable, how he grows the profit, and what the key factors are. I could have interviewed him for multiple hours. Like, we spent most of this episode talking about that gas station. So super interesting guy, super interesting story. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. I certainly enjoyed myself on the interview. I want to remind you that we have the GTA West REI meetup happening on the 20th of April at West Ave Cider. Again, they were kind enough to host us the first time. They've agreed to have us back. We absolutely loved the establishment. Our last meetup was fantastic. Such a great turnout of people. So many investors that are just filled with wisdom. Some new, some very accomplished already. People sharing stories. If that sounds good to you, I highly recommend you come join us. Join through the link in the show notes of this episode. Make sure that you're in our private Facebook group, because that's where the events are posted. You'll need to be in there so that you can get on the events. And I would really look forward to seeing you there. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode with Mohit Kanyan. Please enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Mohit Kanyan on the show. Mohit, tell me about how we came to be sitting here together.
So I've been following you from over a year now, and I've been seeing all your podcasts. The day it drops on Sundays, I watch them, and then I reached out to you, I think, on Instagram once, and then you connected me with your team, and they reached out to me, and that's when we finalized. And I think they reached out to me a few days back that, hey, there's a slot open up. If you want to come by. I'm like, yeah, I won't miss this.
So I try and stay ahead on the recordings, but now every once in a while, just with timing, it's like, oh, we're out of episodes. Yeah. So this one will air pretty quick next weekend. But it's good having you here. Thanks for driving over from Kitchener, right?
Yes.
And you just briefly told me some stuff you're up to right before gas station being one of them. Yes. But give me the backstory, like where your inspiration to start real estate investing came from, and the bullet points of what you did and what you did next.
So I came to Canada in 2016 September as an international student for my master's in University of Windsor. So when I came here, and then I started working part-time in Walmart along with my full-time master's course. And then I quickly realized that there was some students in University of Windsor were doing some business as a student during their summertime. So it was like College Pro painting franchise.
Okay.
And that's when I really am like, oh, this seems pretty straightforward. And I met those guys. They're like, yeah, this is how we do it. I'm like, I can pull it off.
College Pro. Yeah. Okay.
So I signed up for it, ran that business while being a full-time student for 2 years then in Windsor itself. Did pretty well for myself. First year we did almost 120. Second year we went up to 250, and then kept growing after that. But then it reached a point where like, hey, do I really want to like run a painting business, or do I want to maybe grow into a real business? So like kind of grew out of that business quickly.
I find it fascinating, like that's a thing, like College Pro, like that painting franchises are a successful thing. Like when any of us could just go to the paint store, get supplies, and go out and start painting.
Yes.
What is it about what they do that makes it work?
I think it's convenience. One, that's the biggest factor.
Yeah.
That like we would definitely target certain areas in the city where we know like that's a high income group. They won't want to paint themselves. And then, you know, one is like people would really like us just because we were students.
They like students.
Yeah. And we were like, you know, going in our shorts, marketing, door knocking. So a lot of people would really like just the overall concept of College Pro. So I think that played a huge part in early success of, even though we didn't have any experience whatsoever of painting, we're like, hey, you kids are kids, you know, just try it out, you know, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Tell me about making the decision to come from India, stay here. Was it always sure that you wanted to stay here, or was that something that you were open to going back? So
initially I hadn't had any plan. I did my undergrad in Delhi, which is the capital city of India. So I did my there, and I started working for a startup. So I was really into like, hey, I want to do a startup, some sort of a tech startup.
Yeah.
So I got into some people in there, and then eventually that startup didn't work out. It got closed after 6 months. I joined in. I'm like, oh, it's then the reality hit me. Like, you know, it's not that easy. So then I started exploring my options. So and then I think one of my cousins, he is in UK. So he said like, hey, why don't you come to UK and then do your master's here, then figure out what you want to do from there on. So luckily my family is well off back home as well. And now they moved here with me, my mom and dad. So, and then that's where the point in like, okay, you know, what's the final place? So my sister, in the meantime, my sister was getting married. My brother-in-law was in US. So she's moving to US permanently. And so I only have one sister, so it's just two of us. So now she moves there. Then I'm like, okay, I should just, natural choice was to go to US.
Yeah.
But then I see the expenses, student part, then it just didn't make sense for me to spend like so many, like, you know, over $100,000 to masters in US. And then US, there's even after once you like do a master's there or do any sort of studies, like especially for being an international student, just rules are always changing. Like there's just no certainty. Like, hey, can you stay there as a work permit?
Yeah, it's a lot more red tape.
Correct.
From their immigration standpoint. Yeah, getting visas and stuff. They're rigid. Whereas Canada, I think, is just a door wide open.
Oh yeah, it's
pretty much.
Yeah, it's pretty. And one is like there's a consistency in the approach. So you know, okay, if I do this, if I want to stay after my studies, I can do that.
So you felt that the chance of you being able to stay was higher in Canada.
Me being able after like at least work a few years after I completed my studies. Yeah, that was like, okay, so now there is a like, okay, I know I'm definitely gonna be there for 3 years at least. If I want to, I can come back before that as well. But at the same time, now I know, okay, if I spend this much money even to go to like a new country, I would at least get to work there for a few years. Yeah. And that wasn't the case both in UK and US. So that was the main deciding factor in Canada. Once I came here and I started running, I think one of the main driver was once I came here and I got those early success in my life, which I haven't experienced in India at that time, just because I didn't, in India, like you don't have a work culture of students working a lot. It's just like the parents kind of pays for you until you kind of graduate.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like, that's a cultural thing.
I really want to understand more about Indian culture in that way, because like it's a Commonwealth country too, right? Yeah. So technically you have fee simple, title ownership. Could you not run a flipping business in India, or would you just...
No, it's just, I just, because I think it's just, one is like in India, entrepreneurship is not like, now it has changed a lot, but it wasn't as much celebrated for you to be doing those things. And as it is over here, so people really get encouraged to do it. In India, it's like, okay, everyone, so like one thing that every like Indian student or Indian kids are being taught is like, okay, you got to study, go bachelor's, and then if you are good enough in studies, you could definitely gonna go for master's, and then you go start exploring your option for work.
I feel like some of our most aggressive businessmen and women over here are Indian origin.
Oh yes,
because the people who come over here, like that's why they're coming, because they want to be entrepreneurs.
I think that's a huge difference. And then like, just an overall environment is way better here for business. In India, that wasn't the case. Like like there was a saying, so they're like, if someone can succeed in business in India, you can literally make like a mark in the rest of the world, just because it's so difficult. There's a lot of red tape in there. But if you can still make it there, then you can make it anywhere. Then everywhere else is going to be a cakewalk for you. And that kind of reflects in a lot of,
Yeah.
big US tech companies have those Indian CEOs because they came from a background where
Right.
they have done so
So
much.
families that are well off in
Yeah.
India, how did they build their wealth?
Mostly, I think real estate is a huge part of it. So I came from a part of India where like most of the, like my father was a landowner. It's land that came from my grandfather. It's kind
And
of,
did
and
he
then
develop it?
yeah. So he
Okay.
kept buying more and more, and then we eventually open up some factories in there, and then like that's how my dad just keep buying more and more. So even if you don't do it, even if you keep it as agricultural land, just because there's urbanization is happening in India at a quick
Yeah.
pace, so those land values just keep going up.
And is that because the population in
Just the
India is just
population
growing?
increase, and then it's
Yeah.
just like a lot more. There's a big push from the government as well toward the urbanization. So like
Okay.
they just keep expanding on the big cities, and then it kind of goes
Yeah.
into the smaller area, and then just overall the value goes up. So that's a huge trend. I think that's where we kind of made most of our mark back home
Cool.
as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a different flavor with this episode, but I want to keep going on this. So what's your favorite thing about being over here and your least favorite thing?
Okay, so least favorite I would say is definitely the weather.
Same.
And I would say the favorite thing is overall what I have done in my like 6 years of journey since I came here, 6-7 years almost now. So of journey, what I've been able to achieve on my own without little to no help from my like family or friends or anyone
Yeah.
else. I think that's a huge part that I would give credit to Canada. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I think this could have only happened in either in Canada or if US would have allowed me to stay in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just from having spent time in both countries, I think what you see in Canada, it's like you put that on steroids in the
I know,
US. Like the entrepreneurship in the US is
Yes.
just like that much more encouraged,
Yeah.
much more capitalist society.
Mhm.
But I get what you're saying. Like even compared to UK, I think Canada's far more entrepreneurial.
Correct. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like my sister lives in US, so I can see her business growth, how they grew up to be in US, and it's just like I'm like I would go there and then I would say something like, man, you guys do like sometimes like half the work that we do and kind of
Yeah.
get so much back in return from there on. But I think the Canada, like the real estate, is being one of the factor that you can really generate
Yeah.
wealth quickly.
And that could be done in the US too. You know,
You just have to do it on a different scale.
yeah, I mean, this is a path I was looking at is doing the investor visa because you could take your money from real estate in Canada, invest it down there into an active real estate business and
And
get,
is that the one way you have to invest 100,000 something?
yeah, they say loosely 100,000. Depends on the type though. That's not a guaranteed
business,
approval.
yeah.
Yeah, the E2. So yeah, I've started that process, just haven't really continued with it. But that's, that's something that I think now that Ontario is throwing out more rules to make it even more difficult for landlords, it's just going to encourage, and I know so many people already taking their money south. It's going to encourage a lot more to do that too.
Yeah, I'm on that track as well. This has been already in talks at the moment. I got my Canadian citizen, which is few months back.
Yeah.
And so I had like, I've been talking with my sister like, hey, how can I move there? Maybe not now, like
Sure.
in a few years down the line, but I'm already
Yeah.
setting myself up for that move eventually.
Yeah.
And now we're just looking for the better opportunities there because there's no rush to it. So as long as the opportunity comes in, and I'm like, I'll be ready to make the move there.
Yeah, that's what entrepreneurs do, right? Like, and I think I recognize this myself young is like, I used to work in a hotel and I was dishwasher and I saw the servers and they were working a lot less hard than me and making tips. And I'm like, I should do that. And when all the other guys just stayed dishwashers, I switched over. And, so if I saw somebody was doing something smarter and better, and I'm not saying that all things in the US are that way, not at all. But if I saw a clear opportunity, I think it was always my personality to say, okay, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the US comes in is like, as you see some things getting a little more difficult here, there seems to be a lot of opportunity there.
Yes.
And not that I'm not buying here. I'm just buying something else here right now, which I'm not going to get into detail on. But so there's obviously opportunity in both. But let's get back to what you're doing in your story. So most people I've interviewed who came over from India did some sort of computer science related degree. I'm just calling it like I've seen it. Is that what you did?
No, I didn't do that. I did like automotive engineering from University. So yeah,
that's new for me. Everyone else is like
majority of us does that, but I wish I would have done that as well. I think opportunity would have been even better. But yeah, I'm happy with what I did. But yeah, that's
okay. So you're a car guy?
Yeah. No, I was until that point, but once I get in there. Because I think the level of education that I found in University of Windsor for the master's program was not what I really expected, and that's where I kind of gave up. And then most of the opportunities for like the higher paying jobs were in US as well, and I couldn't work because I was on a work permit at that time. I was student visa, so there's no point for me. Then I really made a switch in my second semester. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna finish it for the sake of it, and I'm just gonna move into doing some sort of business or something else.
Okay, so then you knew you wanted to do business. So you graduated in 2018?
2018, yes.
Okay, from your master's.
Yeah.
And then did you buy a property right away?
So because like I bought my first property in end of 2018, and then joined Amazon at the same time, because because at that time I was doing the mortgage part, but I didn't really pay attention to the part like, hey, you need to have like certain amount of income to get qualified and all that. Because I already knew like the amount of money people were making or how good they were doing when I was doing those painting business. I met a lot of people who were doing flipping, so we would paint the houses for them. So kind of gotten into an idea of like, okay, this is what I really want to do eventually.
Yeah.
And then figuring out the mortgage part, where then the Amazon opportunity came in. They paid me pretty well from the starting salary. I got there as a area manager. I'm like, and then I got in as soon as I completed my first 3 months, got my mortgage.
Okay, so you already had built your credit.
Yes.
You finished the 3-month probation.
Yes.
Now you're getting a mortgage.
Yeah, got the mortgage and then already had an eye on a property that I really wanted. Because I lived in Windsor, I really wanted to invest in the South Windsor area, which is near to the college, stay away from the university, because houses quality wasn't that good over there.
Okay.
I'm like, so invested in South Windsor, got first one, and then eventually got 2 more properties in the same neighborhood.
So these were just investment properties.
Yeah, these were just investment.
And now for your home, you're just renting something?
Yeah, I was renting. So I was living in Mississauga once I joined Amazon.
Okay.
I was living in Mississauga or Brampton area, and then I kept investing in Windsor because like one easy entry for me.
Well, and you knew it, right?
And I knew it very well where to invest. And then same thing with all the contractors and everything. I knew everything back of my hand. Like easy to manage, kept doing it. And then the COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then we ended up buying a few more properties in private sale from every house that we lived in Windsor as a student. We lived in 2 different houses. We bought the property.
You bought them from the landlord?
Yeah, from the landlord. So I knew landlord wanted to sell them. So the moment he showed some interest around, so one of my friend who was living in that property at that time, he messaged me like, hey, the landlord is selling his property.
That's interesting because I find like it's the natural tendency of these people. They want to just see what they can get on the market.
Yeah.
I got an opinion from a realtor. They say I can get this. And the realtor had always boosted him up.
Yes. And then that's when he did contact his realtor, but his realtor suggested him to make some improvements to the property.
Yeah.
And then I think his personal situation didn't allow him to do that.
Right. Okay. So you had a unique situation there.
A unique situation. Same situation with both the properties that we bought from him. He had to do some work, and he was the kind of a guy who would, if he has to do any work, he would do it himself.
Oh, okay.
And I think his personal situation didn't allow him to do that at that time. That's where we came in. I'm like, just leave it as it is. Let's just agree on a price, and then we go from there.
Yeah, let me do it.
Yeah. And then I'm like, you ended up facing because there was no realtor involved whatsoever. I'm like, we go to the lawyer and just do the transaction. You kind of save all your realtor fee as well, and plus there is just no headache involved in renovating the property.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's where we kind of got into it. And then the COVID happened. Everything prices, most of them like doubled in a few years in COVID. So then we started selling in 2021. So
great timing.
Yeah, great. And that time I was like, okay, now I need to move towards the GTA investing, because now I have built enough equity, and now I was inching towards starting my own family as well. I'm like, now I need a house to live in as well.
Yeah.
So that's when I sold one property, started selling the ones that we bought from our landlord. So we made roughly 100K on both of them once we sold them. And then after that, I ended up leveraging the other properties that I bought in South Windsor through HELOC, and then one through refinancing. And that's when we really South Windsor property gave us a big return in terms of what we sold them. The one property we almost made $500,000 in 6 months or so. Just because of that timing of
actually, Marco was on the show. He was telling me about that. Marco Egbaba. I think he did that $500,000 in about less than a year on a property in Windsor.
We had 6 months. It was just, I think the timing, how we bought it and when we sold it just worked naturally. It wasn't planned. And that kind of allowed me to, then I ended up buying in Kitchener. And then I'm like, okay, I can live in this property. And then eventually came across more opportunities in Kitchener. I'm like, okay, let's just get into more in Kitchener. And then
so that became your market, Kitchener?
Then I moved into Kitchener, And then I was the time like I was in a way like I was very comfortable in my Amazon job as well. I got promoted few times, so I was making good, almost 165K per year ish.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm like,
That
okay.
helps qualify for the mortgages.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
But that's almost like golden handcuffs, because the real push is to go to commercial.
Yes.
And then you don't need to qualify personally anymore.
Correct. And that's where it was like, okay, now I was at a point where I'm like, I want to leave a full-time work and now I can just jump into the business, because now I had seen enough success. COVID was kind of dwindling down at that time. I'm like, okay, these properties are gonna go. This time we had in last year or two is gonna end very soon.
Yeah.
Now we gotta start looking into other avenues to make that kind of money. So that's when we like, okay, let's buy some sort of commercial business, because in order for me to leave my Amazon full-time work, because at that time I was about to get married, my parents were moving into Canada as well. So the entire family would I have to support them now. Like, what do we do? Like, keep working on it. So then we came into like, okay, let's just buy some sort of commercial business. We looked at the plazas. Then the obviously range doesn't work, and then I'm like, okay, how much money can I get on my own? Maybe I have to bring in a partner in order to acquire it. And that's when I met the few guys who were on few gas stations, mostly some in GTA, some in up north as well. So I started talking to them, met them a few times. I'm like, okay, how does this business work? So it is capital intensive if you buy with the land, obviously.
Yeah, this is going to be a good topic. I'm looking forward to getting into this, because I don't think we've ever dug into a gas station on this show. But okay, so a couple of things off the top that I've noticed about gas stations is I think you have to replace the tanks every 10 years.
If you now, I think if you get the fiberglass one, then you can get away with even more. But the one we got, it's a new gas station, like built 2 years back.
Brand new. So then you have 8 years on the clock.
So 8 years on the clock. But I did discuss with the banks as well, but they said now we can get up to more than 10 as well if it's fiberglass. Okay. And we have to get some environment tests done for that. So as long as those ones we did, they came out pretty good last time.
So you did your phase 1 environmental. Phase two, yeah. You always have to go past phase 1, I think, with a gas station. Yeah. So phase 2 would involve soil testing.
Soil testing, correct.
Yeah, and what do those typically end up costing? Like 20 grand?
20 grand, roughly. Yeah, we would take 20 grand.
Yeah, phase 1 can be under 5.
Yeah, that can be.
But you're going right through both, so you're into like 25 right off the bat. And then if they find something, phase 3 would involve remediation, would it?
Yeah, it would be but then that would be a deal killer if that happens.
So you're looking for a gas station, if you're going to buy, that has a clean phase 2. They test the soil, it's good. So meaning that the tanks have stayed sealed, hasn't contaminated the land around it.
Yes.
Because so technically later on that could be turned into a residential neighborhood.
For sure.
Okay.
So that was the main point in there. And then now look for the one which is already stable, because a gas station can be very capital intensive. Let's say if you try to build something from ground up. And so we were looking, okay, like where I'm good at is maybe because I just don't have enough knowledge of the industry, but if there is something that I can add on to the existing business to increase the value of it, and then I kept getting that cash flow from it, and then maybe eventually sell it in few years or like however we want to keep it, but there has to be that opportunity for us to grow.
Opportunity to grow, yeah.
And then that would be our exit route as well, because and then that's where I'm like, okay, now we started looking around, talk to a few people who own, like if anyone owns a gas station which is worth like few $1 million, they would like more or less they would own like multiple of them. So like that's something that I would found. And then luckily for me, like there's a lot of people from Indian community who owns a lot of them in there. So that was
you had some people you could ask questions to.
Yeah, it's just like it was easy for me to find those people who really into those businesses. So there's few people who met who really guided me through the entire process, like, hey, what you should look into if you really want to grow it and then eventually exit it in few years. So these are the few things that you look at. So one thing we found is gas station along with the convenience store, which has more than enough space where you can add some sort of a quick like a fast food restaurant, be it a franchise or anything else, because a restaurant might not have enough value on its own, but since if it's attached to a gas station in the same building, it adds up to your
synergy. So you were saying that that you wanted an expansion opportunity, and I'm big on that too, because at the end of the day, it's not worth putting all the energy into something if you can't grow it. Because I think a lot of people, and this was my early frustration in real estate investing, is I'd buy smaller properties and I'd realize how much of my time went into each one. I'm like, how could I possibly scale this? And that's actually what led me to buy the campground up north, is because we knew that with 90 acres, we could
Yeah.
come up with new ideas. We could
Yes.
find ways to utilize that land. We're using like 10% of it right now.
Yes.
So I guess you're kind of thinking the same, like if I get into one, I'll have the community, the knowledge base,
Yeah.
I'll know how to do it. Might as well just do more.
Yes,
Like,
that's the plan. And then with the gas station one, because it's like the valuation is completely based on your net income, then you
Yeah.
figure out a way, okay, how do I increase the net income of it? One is like, because the gas part is like the gas station doesn't
Yeah.
really make a lot of money through the selling the gas.
No, it's pretty much a break even, right?
Yeah, it's just a
Well,
little bit
it makes
more.
a little bit of money.
Yeah, yeah, definitely like makes, but not like with the scale of what you want to, end up buying for it.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, right now we are making, because we have a deal with the company where we redid our contract. Now we have a fixed commission on all of our gas, so I don't really buy the gas. So I've, in technical terms,
You just get a spread on it, or
yeah. So I have kind of rented out my tanks to the fuel company, and I just get a fixed commission for keeping their gas in my tanks and selling it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the kind of a one we have. So I make roughly around 7 cents, give or take, on
Okay.
every liter that we sell. So in a day we sell around 13 to 14,000 right now. That's what we are averaging every day. But there's so like in the 13 to 14,000 does include some diesel, which has higher commission. So
Diesel has higher
yeah,
commission.
but overall it's kind of around like 7 is kind of average that we get around. 7 cents per liter.
7 cents per liter on
Yeah.
14,000, including the diesel and your gas.
Yeah. So that's
Yes.
14,000 liters.
So that works out to be just shy of 1,000 a day on the
Correct,
gas.
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's on that part, and then the sales inside the store we are roughly around 2,500 per day inside the store. So there is a margin of around 25 to 30%, depending on which item has a higher sale that day. So and then so that's the store part. But now where someone is already inside the store or at the gas
Yeah.
station, how can I get them into my restaurant? Because
then the restaurant could also have a margin.
Yes.
And this the synergy, like you said, if they're already there,
Yeah.
oh, let's go inside, use the washroom. Oh, we'll grab some snacks. So you start to get all that. So you're looking at, if you're 25% on 2,500, you're about 625 on what you're making in the store.
in the store.
And then you're also another 980 on the gas itself.
Yeah, and then the food we have on a daily average sales, because it's we have the restaurant name, it's Asado Burrito, and it's a store that the previous owner kind of did it from ground zero. He had a pizza in there.
So it's
before.
not a chain.
It's not a chain. He had a pizza in there, so he kind of paid them off, get them out of the
Yeah.
place, because he wasn't making any margin. So he developed this store, like it's a Mexican and Indian fusion, a unique product. People
Okay.
really love it from the town. And then so that has we have an average sale of around 12 to 1,300 per day from that.
12 to 1,300. So you own it and this guy's operating it?
No, I own it completely.
You own it completely.
I
and you
have
just-
registered. I have actually trademarked the name and everything
Okay.
else
So it's a $1,300
per day in
per
there.
day.
Yeah,
And what kind of margins are you on that?
so on that one we are roughly around 45 to 50%.
So that's another 585 a day.
Yeah.
So total daily, I mean, and we're going to get into how these numbers sort of look, but so 585 plus 625 plus another 980 on the gas. That's about 2190
Yeah.
in gross profit coming in on a
Yes.
daily. So that's sort of like if we were to do, my typical spreadsheet look, that's where we're starting.
Yeah.
It's just, that's not a monthly, that's a daily figure.
That's a daily figure.
So we would just have to take that 2190 times 365 divided by 12. And that works out to monthly rent of 66,000.
Yeah.
So high cash flow business.
Yeah. High cash flow.
But also you've got your operating expenses
Yes.
that we have not factored yet.
Yes. Yes.
So let's go through some of those, like on that property. What are you looking at for annual taxes on a place like that?
We have from the property tax around 15,000.
15,000. I thought it'd be worse. Okay, so that's not too bad. Insurance, you probably got a fairly big bill.
Yes. We have right now, just because I'm new to the business, so I pay almost 20,000 for the year. But after in my second year, it will go down to like 14. And then after 2 years, they kind of drop it down to 6 or 7,000.
So it's going to go down.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about maintenance? What kind of maintenance do you have to do on the tanks, and are you paying for out of pocket?
No, we
Nothing?
just, because based on our contract, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of, but something if breaks down, let's say in a machine where you kind of paid at the machine and something, if that breaks down,
Yeah.
that's something would I have to repair. But so far, nothing has happened yet. I own it from like almost 4 or 5 months now.
Okay.
Nothing has happened yet. But if it does go down, each repair would cost me somewhere around $1,500.
1,500 per machine if they break.
Like if something happens,
something
I know
happened.
that's a minimum cost.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
What are you looking at to replace the tanks when the day comes? To dig them up, take them out, put the new ones in, and do you have to test it when you do that?
Yeah, you have to test it.
Okay, so you're looking at another 25,000 to test. Easily. Excavation's probably going to be another 25, 35. Yeah. Then you got to redo your parking lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are you into? Like 75,000 to replace them?
I would say go up to 90 once we replace all of them. Yeah.
So 90,000. Yep. This is one thing I want to make sure is captured in our maintenance number is that you pretty much have to take 90,000 and divide it by 10 years.
Yes.
So whatever it's going to be, if you're thinking 10%, you also want to add on what is 90,000 divided by 10 years? It's going to be 9,000 a year. Yep. So, I mean, we need to make sure that the maintenance number here shows up at over 10,000 a year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then not only that, like this is small things that could, because now you are operating 3 different, like there's a convenience store, gas station, and a restaurant. So something could go off once in a while everywhere. So there's a lot of miscellaneous that we have to account for.
Yeah. Yeah, you really do have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to get my numbers corrected here. So let's just make sure. So basically you're going to be looking at, I don't know, still like if we run 5% maintenance, that's 40 grand a year. Yeah. That's more than enough to cover what you're going to spend, I think. Yeah, you probably won't even be that much. Maybe you'll be more like, but then again, we also have to think who's mopping the floors in the store. Like you're paying somebody to do that. So for that reason, we could obviously
it kind of adds up from there.
Like what do you pay for employees for that location in a year?
Most of them are on like $16 to $17 range per hour.
Okay.
And then we have one person in restaurant side for 11 hours. That's what the timing for it. So per day, 11 hours.
So 11 hours times, say, well, by the time you do source deductions,
so then you are looking
21.
At $20 to $21.
Yeah, so then times basically, so let's do it in man hours. How many man hours in a year? 2,000 between all the employees?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say 2,000 times $21 on average. To just simplify it, that's $42,000 in salaries. Does that sound about right for the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your employees figure, and then so that'll allow us to bring our maintenance number down a bit. So 2.5%, say that's about 20 grand.
Yeah.
What about utilities, gas?
So utilities, we pay right now both hydro and gas combined somewhere around $1,400 per month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Equals 1,400 times 12. Okay, so that's them together. And then any sort of like landscaping, snow removal contracts?
Yeah, we have the snow removal contract. That's for the winter. So that's kind of rough 5,000 for the
5,000. Yeah. Okay. And then who takes care of your grass?
I guess we so it's not a lot because it's most of it is already done. It's pretty it's like we had the previous owner had it like grass is in very limited area.
So there's very little grass.
Just very little to no
send
grass.
somebody out with a lawnmower.
Yeah. So
all right,
that could be easily done. Yeah.
Okay, so then I'll just leave a miscellaneous there for $1,000 for things I'm not thinking about.
Yeah.
Any other costs that I'm not thinking of here?
I would
technology subscriptions.
There's just I think there's the Wi-Fi which is $100 per month that we have in there, and then a lot of it is now but the back end of technology part is taken care by the company which supplies the gas because most of it is
so they cover a lot of that stuff, so it limits your so I just thrown in some extra, like I just put in 1% for management, which equates to 8,000 on the year. Correct. That'll give you some breathing room to just add in some stuff. Okay, so then what's the purchase price or investment to get you to this point where you're at now?
So we got this one for around 3.6 million, and we bought with the corporation, so we kind of saved on like roughly 70,000-80,000 on the land transfer tax through that. And then so we put in 35% down.
Okay. And then did you add anything beyond, like in terms of renovations or? So
far none.
Nothing. Okay.
So we're gonna come to the renovation point because we have some plans in the place. So when we so that's 35% mortgages with RBC, 1 year fixed term.
1 year fixed?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So what kind of rate are they offering?
We had around 6.8%.
6.8. Yeah. And do you think they'll be about the same when you renew?
Yeah, it's either going to be same or it's just going to be, I think, more or less we're looking at the same as of now. Last time I spoke to them, that's what we are looking at,
Like, just to put this into context, and I know you did some stuff here, like obviously it's just like you said, you're looking for ways that you could cleverly increase your income, right? Yes. So get people inside, sell them stuff. Get them into the restaurant, sell them more stuff.
Yes.
And by doing that, like I'm getting, so just to run through the expenses again, I got 15,000 in taxes, insurance 20,000, maintenance I got at about 20,000.
Correct.
Management I got about 8,000 here just to allow for incidental stuff. Electric and water 16,800, and gas. And then we've got landscaping snow 5,000. We've got employees at 42,000. And miscellaneous for 1,000.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you might say, hey, employees, maybe you spend more than that.
Yeah, employees are definitely more than that. I would say
like 60, 80,000 a year.
Yeah, I would go up to 80 easy.
Let's go to 80,000 just to be conservative here. So on a $3.6 million purchase price, that's a 17.6% cap rate. Like that's
we had
insane.
Like we had so like because when we got it, I think restaurant sales were around 700 to 800 per day.
Yeah.
And then there has been a uptick from last 4 or 5 months, because this eventually when we started the negotiation for the property, when we put in the offer, it was last year in like Feb last year this time, and then we closed the property in almost like November.
Okay.
So there was a huge time. In the meantime, like whatever happens, like by chance or some sales kind of took uptake, because we renewed the contract in the middle of the year, which played a huge factor. Where as per our new contract, because there were some corporate-owned stores in the city itself by the same company which supplies us the fuel, and they had the lowest price. So if you see the Pioneer gas station, they always has the lowest price in the entire city because they are corporate-owned, most of them.
Oh, so yours won't be the lowest price then?
So then with as per our new contract, which we did,
it allows you to get cheaper gas.
Yeah, which my price now has to match with the corporate-owned store.
Oh, okay.
So now my volume went up in the middle of the year, but
so
we have already formed the deal at that point.
But I mean, I think that for you, the big thing is getting people to your gas station to go inside, buy stuff, and buy food.
Yes, and that's where the factor was like, okay, when he was negotiating the contract, the previous owner, I was with him throughout the time. We're like, okay, we might, because if you really look at, like, I can if I buy the gas through a regular contract, if I buy the gas myself, I can literally price it out whatever I wanted it to be, but that kind of suppress your sales day to day and kind of reduces the foot traffic into your store.
Yeah, so you want to keep it aggressive.
So we wanted to, like, okay, gas part doesn't make us a lot of money anyway. Why don't we use it as an incentive for people to get into our store? Which is
it's not that it makes you nothing. It's still making you almost 1,000. Like gross profit.
Correct. So restaurant. So the gas sales previously were rolling around 8,000. So now it's slowly going up month by month. So now we are at a point where we are doing average, 13 to 14,000 per day.
To think that you can come into a business that you've never done before and immediately increase the income by just thinking about it through deductive reasoning, like how can I increase my income? How am I going to compete against these people? It's like asking the simple questions.
Yes.
And you didn't have a business school education.
No, I did not have no business school education. This was like this. My previous owner, like, shout out to him. He gave me a lot of help into it, because
the previous owner.
He was planning to keep it to him, but that guy eventually had one big gas station in Oakville. Yeah. And then he has one big one that he's building in Brampton now.
Okay.
And then in his Oakville one, right behind it, he had a Tim's there. So he got the Tim's out from that location. Now he's building a Marriott. Yeah. There. So that guy has his hands full. So he's like, okay, let me just offload some of it. So he didn't have any reason to, like, really wanted to sell it. Eventually, but then eventually just his other business avenues got, like, way too big. He's like, okay, I really need to shift my focus onto.
So one thing I want to dig in on a bit here is the 90,000 to swap the tanks out. I think that there's potentially room for that to cost more.
Well,
now, what do you think? In a worst case scenario, what do you think it might cost you? Like, do you know the specific area of your parking lot it's under? Yeah. And is it, how destructive is it that you don't have to rip up your machines?
So it's placed in a way where it is way far from your machine area.
Okay, so you don't have to mess with
all that. So you don't have to. So it's in one of the parking lots sections. That's where it is actually located. So if we have to do it, that's where the area we have to dig it. Because this, as I saw, this gas station was built just a few years back, brand new. And then they were very aware of what would happen. Right. So that's where it's like it was done.
Yeah, so they did it in a smart way. I'm sure there's some gas stations, and I've seen it, where they had to rip all the pumps out and all that stuff. So,
like,
but even if we
worse,
wanted to be more conservative and
yeah,
say, like, let's take maintenance up from 2.5,
yeah,
which is 20,000, up to like 4 or 5%, which
yes,
is about 40
correct,
a
and
year,
yeah,
then that gives you an allocation of money. It's not that you're paying that every year.
yeah,
It's just money set aside to go
correct,
do that later
yeah,
on.
yeah, and then also from the the labor point we have where right now we are going 24/7. So gas station wasn't 24/7 till
Yeah.
this point.
So you're going to start spending more on
So
salaries.
I'm gonna spending more on salaries.
Okay, so let's take the salaries up to
Yeah.
120 a year.
Yeah, I would say that's where it's gonna end up once we go.
Okay.
Not the restaurant, just the gas station part. We're gonna go with
Okay.
that part.
So you might so let's just say hypothetically this is where we're at. Now we're looking at just shy of 16% cap rate.
Correct.
So it's still a very attractive number compared to most of what people are looking at in Ontario. Can anybody go out and find a deal like this, or is this a unicorn?
It's basically like gas station usually doesn't come on say like you won't find them on an MLS or anything, any platform. Like you'll find some of them, but I think most of them are in a private sale.
And what's to stop me from going out and finding a corner that's zoned and buying it and building my own gas station?
I think just because the amount of regulation you have to go through
regulation is probably the big thing.
It's just a huge part because that's where like you like I know the previous owner he's into building as well. The one he's building into Brampton, he told me he's almost got his approvals done now, and now it took him almost like 3 years just to wait for everything to get lined up, because then you're because there's a huge incentive in the gas station part. So let's say in my I'll come down to that renovation point that we talked about. So I'm now renovating my store, convenience store. So now the company which I had redid the contract which supplies which is Parkland, which supplies my fuel. So now we spoke to them, and then they said, okay, if you take our brand, which is On the Run, so if you see this yellow sign
On the Run, like SO.
Yeah, SO, yeah. So so my gas station is also SO. So On the Run, if I go with them and take their brand name, internally there's just few changes that they're gonna brand the store, like some color changes and all that. They're gonna always automate a lot of our inventory system that we've been doing so far. It's completely our own. We have our own vendor. But if we go with On the Run, incentive they give us is like, hey, you get combined buying power of On the Run, so your kind of margins improve from there on. Plus, it's a branded store, kind of gets you a little bit more attraction, and they have their own promotion that they run. So right now, which is like, hey, you buy one item, you kind of get two of them for this price, and those things happen with Parkland. So they like, okay, do those things, and the incentive that they gave to me in order to take their brand name is, one, it's a 10-year deal, and second, they are upfront. They are giving me $100,000 that whatever the small renovation that's going to happen,
they'll cover it.
Could cover it.
Yeah.
So potentially it's gonna cover more than what we really needed, because when they initially did the contract, they're like, okay, we'll completely like take it over, took it apart and put it back together. And now when we were actually now I'm placing the order and doing those renovation, I'm like, oh, this thing works. I can just make some tweaks to it. I'm not gonna move it because now I have to sell my existing stuff like shelvings and all that. Yeah. I'm like, why would I do that? You guys are gonna put the same thing in there. Let's just try to make it use of it. And they agreed on it.
They're going to reuse what you have.
They're going to use majority of our stuff. So we just, on an average, I think I'm looking at around 50 to 60K. It's going to actual cost of everything that they want us to change. And they're giving me 100,000.
Okay. So you're going to have a nil investment on that.
Correct.
In fact, you're going to get some money from it.
And then the overall, like my store gets a huge upgrade because of that. Yeah.
Okay. So let's keep going through some of these numbers, how it looks. So 65% mortgage, that's 2.34 million. Correct. That means you're basically in for what, 1.5 all in? Yeah. So 25-year AM, 6.8%, works out to a monthly payment of over 16,000.
Yeah. No, we are actually around roughly 17,000 something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some of the banks, they do a slightly different mortgage calculation, but we're in that ballpark. So annual cash flow 380, monthly 31,000. Like that's a legitimate business. Obviously, you had a pretty big down payment.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the passive appreciation back at 2% on something like this. Although, I mean, if somebody's valuing based on a cap rate, I can't imagine these things are selling at 15. I think you could probably sell it for a lot more than 3.6.
That's the way the plan is. That's why we want to get this store upgrade quickly. Because the company ran some numbers, they had their projection. Obviously, they are overly optimistic a lot of time. But I'm thinking, okay, like I know the Circle K store, which is only branded store in that city, does almost 35 to 4,000 per day.
Which city is this?
It's in Tillsonburg. It's a small city.
Tillsonburg.
Yeah,
I was born in Tillsonburg.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like so that's Circle K.
So
does like
yours is in Tillsonburg.
yeah, mine's in Tillsonburg. So there's the Circle K does like almost $4,000 per day in sales.
Okay, so you have some aspirations.
So that's where I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I know that store very well, but that's 24/7. It's a corporate owned store.
Yeah.
What pricing that they sell items at and what we sell, there is a difference in there because they can afford to do it. And that's where I'm like, okay, if I have a better buying power in terms of my inventory, which is through on the run, then I might be able to, let's just
compete with them.
Yeah, compete with them in terms of pricing. If not, and then I go 24/7 along with them, door to door, see like where we end up.
Where in Tillsonburg is yours?
So there's only one SO in Tillsonburg. So it's 124 Tilson Avenue.
Tilson Ave. That's been so long. I moved away from Tillsonburg when I was 10.
So there's a home hardware store right next to it. There is a big car wash that's right next to it.
Oh, okay. So if you go all the way down Broadway and then turn left.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I know where. Yeah, it takes me back. Old tobacco country. I grew up, just outside of Tillsonburg. Delmer is where I was, my parents' house was. So looking at your total return calculation, so your annual pay down on that mortgage is just over 43,000. Your annual appreciation, I got 72 in here, and then return from cash flow is 380, which is a 28% cash on cash. So for cash you have in the deal, which is just basically, well, you don't even have land transfer, but you would have had legals. You probably would have been like 10, 15 grand in legals.
20.
20?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could just adjust this. We'll switch it out. 20 grand in legals, 0 for land transfer because you took the company.
Yeah.
Your return on investment on an annual basis is 38%.
I never did that.
That sounds pretty cool.
But I think let me just go over some of the expenses. I'm pretty sure there must be some.
I might have missed something.
Yeah. Like
so we could just add in or gross up. That say we gross up the management another 5 to 5%.
Yeah. Definitely.
Now we bring the cap rate down to 15. Cash flows down to 30. Total returns down at 36. Like it doesn't change it that much.
Yeah.
If there is other things you're missing, like. Great, but we're not. There's a lot of money, still going here. Like you said, there might be the odd thing that we've missed. We're doing this back of the envelope. So we've talked about the regulation. That's obviously a deterrent for somebody to get into this. And I think a lot of people just look at it and just like they do with development, they think that's too big. Like no, that's not for me. I'll get a duplex. Meanwhile, like here you are, you just say, I know enough people who are doing this, which is, that's how it happens. Like you start talking to people who own them and then it seems demystified.
Yes.
So one of the things that I would have a hard time with is like if you sign a contract with say Circle K or any of these, is what might be hidden in the fine print and what they might be able to make you do.
For sure.
It seems good now, but what if in 5 years you're not happy?
Yes.
Is there any out on that?
So like even though our previous contract that we had, we did do out of that. So you can redo those contracts. I think after 50% of the contract is over, there is a clause that allows you to redo it. But I don't think if I'm going to own it for that long to do it.
You don't think you'll own it that long?
No.
So if you sell it, then it just goes to whoever
it's just next person
transfers.
Takes it over. But like where we see the value, because like as I said, my eyes were on what that Circle K does. So, but on my own, I can't compete with it. So this gives me a chance to, go in that direction. Like, hey, like, there might be some things that they were like, hey, because I already went through details. I'm like, okay, so they don't have any control on what end price is gonna be. So that's where I'm like, okay, that's why I want the freedom in. So I don't want them to come in. They're like, hey, you can only have 15% margin on these things. Yeah. So that's part is very well clear. And then the other, I think the few things is like they have some sort of like, hey, these are the vendors that we want you to work with. But these are my existing vendor prices. So we did a price study with what they have and what we have. They have a significantly better prices than what I would get on my own. So that's a huge factor that allows me to reduce some of my cost and then kind of increase the volume game in there. Other than that, I think there's definitely going to be few things that they're going to be like, hey, you can only do like certain things. I think cigarette, they have a cap on the pricing.
You're capped. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of provincial regulation on that too, right?
Yeah. So even from the company aspect, they do like even the companies which would sell you cigarettes, they want to keep their own cap as well, especially the certain high selling ones. They're like, hey, you can sell this one for more than this price, like no matter what happens.
Okay, so you're super controlled.
So the cigarettes, and then obviously the lotto part is like you just have 8%
Yeah.
straight up margin on them. Yeah.
Imagine if they let you start selling beer and stuff in your store. Like that would totally change your profit.
There is if you go from the Tillsonburg towards the 401, there is a gas station Esso which went for 4.6. It has a
LCBO in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it went for, but it has a house as well on the
Yeah.
property, same property. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was like I think 1.7 acre-ish property that they had. Like the gas station is small.
Mhm.
That's just only 2 pumps in there. Like overall, the store is small, but they have the LCBO and then the house.
That brings in so many people.
Yeah, and then that kind of that's where it like that one went for 4.6 just 2 years back.
Well, I mean, sure, there's plenty of people listening to this episode that are going to be researching how to buy a gas station tonight. Because, I mean, this in a market where you're scratching your head in so many things, thinking, how am I going to make this work? It's the people who go and do the things that other people think is, that's out of my reach that really get rewarded for it. I would say that there's some hazard pay built into the margins that people in gas stations make. I would expect to see the cap rates higher because there's the risk of, what if there is a leak? Whose responsibility is it to clean it? It's yours. That's why you got to get paid very well so you can bank up that money in case something ever happens.
I think, and then those things does more often than not, you will run into issues where that you might not have any expense, let's say for a maintenance issue for a year, but then the next year
it comes and it comes big.
All of a sudden it's big.
Yeah, it comes and it comes big, right?
Yeah.
So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but you do get compensated for being willing to go into that business, to know that you need to manage your cash flow and you have to have a reserve fund set aside in case something happens.
I have almost 100,000 that we have. Like we have a lot of because banks like the RBC did give us operating line of credit as well. Yeah. And then other than that, also I do keep some safe amount for that. Yeah. Because so things could happen. It's just
it's the nature of the business.
It's the nature of the business.
Which anybody I talked about this a lot early on in this podcast, like structuring your business in a way that you can sleep at night.
Yes.
What are some of the things you do? Like having $100,000 available is probably one of them.
Yeah.
Are there other things that help you sleep well knowing you have this asset?
So other than that, I think there's a lot of safeguards that I have built into when we got it. One is of course, in terms of day-to-day functioning of it, because now I'm really focused on developing my realtor business as well. So my wife has taken over the complete management.
I was going to ask you, we didn't even ask that. How much time of yours and your wife's is this gas station?
So my majority of time is my wife's. I only go there twice a week.
Like she's on site a lot?
She's on site at least 3 to 4 days in a week.
And that's minimum. A 2-hour drive for her?
1 hour both ways, from Kitchener to Tillsonburg.
1 hour from Kitchener to Tillsonburg?
Yeah.
Is she flying?
Into
the Tillsonburg airport there?
I wish, but it's like a 1 hour drive one way, but that's where she kind of takes on. But a lot of things is like most of our vendors we have, especially for the restaurant part, are locals. So they deliver to the restaurant. So we kind of try to automate as much as we can in that point of view. And our restaurant doesn't require a lot of us to hold a lot of inventory as well. It's just a burritos, most of the So we got the chicken and then the beef and all that stuff that we procure locally. That's the only thing that kind of keep refreshing every few days.
Does your wife do you pay her a salary or does she just take dividends like you do?
So far we haven't discussed that point, but she's probably just gonna take up the dividends.
So you guys own it together?
Yeah.
What do you feel that it's worth it? I mean, because look at the numbers as they appear here, it looks like it's worth the time to invest. But do you feel like you're sort of married to it? Is there a way that you could hire out management to the whole thing? And would you feel like that's a comfortable thing to do? Like, you pay 15% in management. I don't know what it would take. Do you have a sense on what that would take and if it's even feasible?
So what I'm really looking for is one of my existing employees. We were really working with him now. He's really big into the restaurant business. I'm like, hey, let's sit down and figure out a way how we're gonna grow our existing restaurant business, because that has the highest margin that we have in the entire business pool. And if I would start the management part is more leaning towards the restaurant side, because gas side and convenience is more so automated, as long as there's someone.
So it's pretty automated. There's not a lot. It's very similar to any other store, but the restaurant's unique.
Restaurant is unique, and that's where the most of the growth opportunity that we have is like, hey, how do we get innovative where people who comes into our store, what sort of promotion do we do for them that they kind of there's a huge footstep in there. People like, how can we just promote our new like existing product or new product from the restaurant to everyone who pumps gas at the station. So that's right, and the challenging part from the marketing perspective, where I don't have to go and found the people. I already have people coming to my place. I just have to figure out how do I sell them my restaurant product. That's the challenge we have.
Get in front of them.
So that's where I'm like, okay, if anyone can help me with that, and that's the person who's gonna take over the complete management, I'm willing to give him over whatever it takes. So that's long as we are focused on the point where like, hey, this is the restaurant is our cash cow now. That's where we want to focus and grow.
It seems like the whole business is a cash cow, but it also is a huge commitment of your time and your wife's time, right? So there's definitely room to maybe hire that out if but it's going to have to be done carefully. But this is one of those things where I think if you want to grow, which I think would be really cool to own a bunch of them, but you got to find a way to automate some of that.
Definitely. I think automation is a huge part, but once you get into it, just because the initial capital cost is very high, and now what I'm getting into is I've already checked out few of them. There is one nearby Windsor, is a Petro-Canada. Someone bought it for their son eventually bailed out on it, and now the gas station is run in a way where, like, let's say it's sometime you would go there on Monday, it's closed entire day. So those kind of things does happen in gas station, just because one capital incentive, you can't just hold on to this asset. Like if you can run it efficiently, it's just gonna drown you.
I know of a guy, I'm not gonna give any specifics, but he would regularly run out of gas. And
so like those things happen.
That's not good.
So like so that's where my next opportunity is like, that was the initial plan when we got into it, is like, hey, find something which runs really well, learn the basics of business from that, and once you are comfortable with like how does the growth of the business work, then you go look for those opportunities where like, hey, so that gas station, it's almost in a 1 acre of land. It's in a city called Leamington, and then it has a car wash store, and they have a food franchise of like a small scale, but they hardly run any of them. Most of them it's closed.
You're saying a lot of words that I like. Car wash is that's 2 words. I like those.
So that part, and then that one went there. The guy is willing to sell it for 2 million, 1.8 to 2 million
with the car wash gas station with the car wash,
along with the restaurant as well inside. But our condition is we want...
Is it on the market?
It's not on the market. It's private.
I was about to say, how is this not sold?
It's private sale. But the problem is the income of the gas station doesn't justify even 2 million right now.
Right, but the car wash... Well, what condition is the car wash in? Is it bays?
Because if restaurant doesn't work, how does the car wash work?
People... Well, I mean, car wash is like self-storage. People go to it.
I know.
People go to it.
People go. But that's where I thought as well. But when I went in there, I went there so far a few times in there, and then most of the time there's something wrong with car wash. It's not working.
So major management challenges. That's one of those things where if you bought it, you'd have to like put giant billboards, new ownership, new management.
It's definitely need some PR.
It's going to take some time. To fix that.
A year would you need a year to stabilize it, and then you're gonna go back to the bank to like refi it.
So you'd almost have to come in with private money,
or cash or something like that sort in order to buy it. They're willing to do VTV as well, but then we had some so last time I told them like, hey, I want like 80% VTV.
Ooh, I like it.
And then the owner said like 50 is what they are comfortable with right now.
So get them to go into second position.
Like that's what we are considering in there. But then the restaurant that's in there, that's a franchise. So I told them like, hey, I'm gonna get him. You're gonna get this restaurant out. I'm gonna move my own one, which I'm very comfortable with how we do it. It's very little to no inventory that we need to maintain for it, and that's the one we want to bring in. So like, there's just a lot of things that we're going back and forth. Hopefully it gets sorted out. If not, like, I'm not in a huge rush to it because I know he is stuck with it. So
is this just like the money that's burning a hole in your pocket from gas station 1 that you're like, okay, I need to invest? Okay.
That's gonna be for a year until you stabilize it, because it's just it takes time to build a trust for a business like that, which has been losing money day to day.
Okay, this is a super cool conversation. Was there anything that you wanted to share that I haven't asked you about?
No, I think so that's the business part I would really want to discuss. This is the first time I've actually discussed in this kind of detail.
We haven't done that on the show, which is awesome. And because I thought, I've always looked at gas stations and thought, like, there's a lot of liability there. Why would somebody want to do this? They must make really good money. And now you've told me about it. And this is what I suspected. So that's awesome. Great sounding numbers. Okay, so Mohit, if people wanted to follow you, learn more about you or reach out to you, where do we send them?
So the two platforms which I'm really active on is LinkedIn and Instagram. So you can just search my name, Mohit Kanyan, and you will be able to find me.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to fire me the links, I can put them in the show. You
You
did? Okay,
email,
so
yeah.
I'll put them in the show notes then. Yeah, and it's great meeting you. Thanks for coming down here, and I definitely want to get you back and hear about this next new deal.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mohit.
Thank you.
There are a lot of people out there talking about the infinite banking strategy and whether or not it makes sense for them. To find out what it's all about and if it's a fit for you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines, where my audience can gain exclusive access to books, podcasts, and webinars tailor-made for real estate investors.